And we should be live. Hi, welcome everybody to another version of the Lessons Learned podcast with myself and Chapelmon.
Yeah, and
Welcome.
my cat and dogs are playing in the
Yeah,
background.
cats and dogs living together. So welcome everybody. I'm gonna check something here because it seems to be a bit weird. But aside from that, yeah, we're good to go. We were hosting Dodger for a moment there, so if you were watching Dodger and now you're watching us, it's like, what happened? Like, I'm sorry. I know the baby was cute, but I cannot offer you babies to sacrifice to you ever loving, hunger for content. But it's resources being what they are these days. So hi, welcome. We're gonna be talking a lot of stuff, and among the stuff we're gonna be talking about, it's gonna be the upcoming Game Awards. But you know how we are here. We're cynical bastards, so that means that we're gonna be talking down a lot of this stuff. In other words, why is it that we have Game Awards, and why should you care or not, as the case may be? So hi and welcome once again to the Lessons Learned podcast. But before we do get into that, of course, we're going to talk about news. And we have a hodgepodge of post-November big release news as sort of the doldrums start heading in December. I mean, the sales are supposed to go up, but the the news start going down. In fact, probably the Game Awards are in December because they don't A, have to compete with anything, and B, people want to keep that excitement for the games that are coming out in February and March.
Hmm.
So let's get started. Nintendo. Let's start with Nintendo. Ends its creator program. Apparently, they realized that letting people actually stream their games on Twitch is a very good idea. Who would have thunk it? Are you
Yeah.
surprised about that, Chapelmon? Because I am totally surprised about that. It just blows my
Well,
mind away.
surprised at the fact that free publicity is good, or that Nintendo's finally actually decided to be like, hey, we're gonna back off and let you guys do whatever you want as long as it's, I guess, in good taste. They had some stipulations. It
Yeah.
almost it almost sounds like they also kind of like, oh yeah, we also don't want you to draw porn of our characters, kind of thing. But maybe that's the way I interpreted the statement.
Yeah, basically. I mean, the stipulations are going to be happening. You don't get a free right to do whatever you want with somebody else's property. It's not like that.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's like don't sell fan art or something, essentially.
Yeah, so it's fine. But it's far more.
Yeah.
I think it's the impact of Reggie Fumishimi, the CEO of Nintendo of America, because Nintendo America has been always very positive about streaming and doing things. It's Nintendo Japan who are like, nope, nope.
Yeah, it also, from the statement, it also kind of sounded like it wasn't just pertaining to just streaming. It was also just other digital, I
Yeah,
guess,
services,
things like, yeah,
YouTube
like fan
and
art
yeah, stuff like that. Yeah.
and I would assume maybe that'd be extensive, like fanfic or something. Just like, oh, don't don't do anything inappropriate with our IPs, please. Which, it's the internet; it's gonna happen.
Yeah. And I
I
think,
hate to say
and I
it.
think also comes to the fact that Nintendo has had some bad publicity as of late, especially how they have gone down on sites that have their ROMs and the like. It's like, how can we some good publicity for this? Oh yes, this thing that was very unpopular. Let us reverse that. Let's do that. So it's a win-win for them. Nintendo, it's how can I describe Nintendo in public policy? It's half and half. They do something good, and then they do something dumb. So it's, I think, by thirds actually. They do something good, then they do something dumb, then they do something bad, and then they do something good again. Corporations.
And it's also very inconsistent too, because
Hmm.
sometimes it's something that's like, oh, it's something they say they see as good, and it's kind of like, okay, it's like mundane, and then it's like, oh, it's something bad that's like, what are you thinking, Nintendo?
That will be the dumb part. Yeah. And then there's deliberately bad stuff like squashing ROM sites or games that you can't even publish, but whatever.
Yeah, I don't think they have like the publishing rights unless
Yeah.
they I I would assume even it'd be iffy if they could relaunch the Super Nintendo again and
Mm-hmm.
print out cartridges again.
Yeah.
Even then, I don't think they'd have the rights to it.
On another piece of news, or continuing a piece of news that is everybody's mind, at least in the gaming industry, Bethesda is now actually giving out actual nylon bags for people,
canvas bags.
canvas bags for people who spent $200 on a pre-order for a helmet, some plastic tag, and a canvas bag. It's like, you finally giving people what they ordered.
Yeah, so the cynical and my husband is saying that it's definitely them trying to avoid legal issues because
Yep.
I think it's very much trying to close the door on a class action lawsuit because I think people would have a case if it came down to a class action lawsuit. Hey, you advertised canvas bags. You didn't tell we had to pre-order this product. You didn't notify us that you were changing something about the product. We opened it. It's not what it says, and your return policy says we can't return it because we opened it, and we wouldn't have found out if we hadn't opened it. Yeah.
It turns out that the the policies that work for digital items, because digital items only exist in virtual spaces, don't work for real items. That you can't return it. It's like if we open it, it's like, but how am I supposed to know what it is if I didn't open it?
Mm-hmm.
Some stores actually still have that kind of policy, and it's like, well, unless it's not underwear. I mean, I get it. If you wear underwear, you don't want to return that for sanitary reasons. But aside from that, it's like, you really? No, that's not gonna fly.
Yeah.
It's one of those times where you can go, yeah, I want to see your manager, and you would be right to actually see the manager because this is not gonna fly.
Yeah, and that was after I guess they mentioned that the people that went to that Fallout 76 like press thing where they have them put up at a hotel and stuff, and at certain other press events they gave out actual canvas backpacks, not the same ones that were pictured in the collector's edition, but some fairly nice ones actually. I wouldn't mind getting a backpack like that.
Yeah, which is typical for basically when they have press conferences and reviewers and all that.
Yeah, but it goes against the two main things that they kind of expressed that like, that canvas is in short. There's a shortage of canvas materials. That was one of the excuse, and the other excuse that they gave out was that it's too expensive.
Yeah,
but apparently not too expensive to give away.
Exactly.
Just too expensive if you bought it for $200.
Give it away to the people that matter. That's the point.
Yes, again, press and influencers and stuff, but not your actual customers.
Yeah, no paying customers that you extracted $200 plus for the yeah. Moving on, because there's only so much you can talk about Fallout 76. I mean, you could talk a lot, but it's just going in circles. So, Sony finally released their mini PSX, PlayStation 1, to, shall we say, mixed reviews. As in, this is not good. This feels more like one of those Sega systems that you can find on the local CVS. Which, by the way, they're literally ours. I mean, I go into my local CVS and they have them over the behind the counter.
They're everywhere. This holiday season, I've gone to Marshall's, like it's a surplus outlet, department store place.
Yeah, we have one
I've seen them stock there. Those Sega or just generic like Atari knockoff consoles.
Yeah.
Also, I was kind of surprised to find official. There's some like a weird official Nintendo stuff and whatnot. Madden 70 or Madden 2018, I think, is in there for like $15. You get for both PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I'm like, wow. Granted, like that's weird. I wouldn't ever pick those games up, but the fact that they're carrying those games or just those products are kind of weird.
So basically, if you were to do a sort of a canvas of what the reviews are, it boils down to, hey, listen, this is just a cash grab. That's what it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
And
and the dog agrees.
yep, she does.
And it's like, yeah, you can get this is cheap. Although there's some cool features, I think people will probably want to exploit, and that is, of course, that it uses as we talked about this one, an off-the-shelf emulator. You can hook up a keyboard and mouse to it, which is not totally surprising because there was a keyboard and mouse for the two-button mouse for the original PSX to play some games. So maybe the whole preloaded thing that people have complained about is that, oh, well, you can load your own if you find a way to do so because it uses
And
USB.
people will find a way to
Yeah,
do
so
so.
this will be hacked. Although,
But
to be honest, I would
it's
probably get the original if I could get original PSX. Yeah.
yeah, but it's so interesting too that like the features that is standard with like are lesser than what the software can actually do because you can hook up the keyboards, access the console commands, and do other things that like by default Sony limited it to. So I think you can probably tweak like things like the graphics, kind of the graphics output, make them better, make the shaders better, and probably other features and probably other quality of life features that aren't in there by default. But the software can do.
Yeah,
So
because
it's
it's off the shelf emulator designed for
Yeah,
probably
so
multiple
it's-
systems, not just the yeah.
It's just kind of baffling. It almost makes me wonder if that's exactly what they wanted. Like it's almost like just here, buy this to emulate it. Like, oh, but don't emulate it, but you could if you want to. Like maybe that's the target market for not
Maybe. I think that's what's gonna end up doing. Some people who like to do emulators and stuff like that. That's what's gonna end it up. And I think it's more of again, it's just a cheap, quick cash grab.
it's a cheap cash cow, but it
Yeah.
would have been. I guess it'd be too much credit to make Sony's like, oh, please don't use this as a emulator for your PlayStation 1 games.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, even though it's really easy to do, and
Don't dump the ROMs on an Xbox 360 or Xbox One or your PC, whatever. Please don't do that. We would
Wink.
not. We're not doing. Like, if people do it, I'm like, they did it. What are they gonna do about it? Well, this is illegal. Well, they're
Oh,
not. They're not streaming on. In fact, you could. This is probably what could happen, and if actually you could see it. Not that I'm advocating this. Just an example. What could happen, chat? You could get the PlayStation Mini, PlayStation Classic, right? Take out basically copy the emulator, copy the ROMs, put them on your PC, run a stream from your PC, and if somebody says, "Where do you get those games?" You're like, here, I'm running it. Look, there's a cable, and that's it. You wouldn't have to get a driver or anything to stream it. It's just be the download, and it's like, okay, there you go.
yeah, it's just kind of weird. And yeah, like you said, it's just a cash grab. Like, oh look, here's our mini console. I think I saw LGR kind of make like, oh, I made my own for just slightly less.
Yeah, with the Raspberry Pi, and I wouldn't be surprised that it actually even uses aspects of Raspberry Pi technology to emulate the hardware as well. So I think they did it for $80, so something like that. So
And that's the thing too. The price, it's $100.
it's not. I mean,
Like for 50, I would like 50 easy. I pick that up and I'm like, I'm not gonna play these games, but that'd be a neat novel thing to have. I get, you know how Nintendo said they weren't gonna make more of the Nintendo NES classics. Well, they did, and we picked one up just for novelty's sake. Like, yeah. Even though that was kind of expensive, that was like $80.
yeah,
Like $70-$80, and it's like, oh well, it's nice to have. Even though we
yeah.
weren't
To
that-
me, I mean, I would get them only because I wasn't somebody who played a lot of Nintendo games, so all these games would be new to me in many ways. Even the ones I played before, being decades, it was like, well, whatever, right? Maybe stream them, like legally stream them, like be able to connect it to my computer and do all that. But that would be it. So I don't know. I think if they were better offerings, or if you
Yeah.
had more backwards compatibility, I think would be better. But there you go. Oh, by the way, Tumblr is might be going the way of
Live Journal.
LiveJournal and some other
MySpace.
MySpace might, because now they instituted a oh, well, they're on December 14th. The article I was reading said December 17th, but in fact, December 14th, they will enact a total ban, and it already sort of started already, but it's going to be official December 14th, on, shall we say, all adult content, blanket, you know. First, and that's happened about a month or so, about a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago.
Yeah.
It started with a ban of attempting a banning more serious stuff, which the site sadly was filled with, such as pedophilia, right, and other stuff, a lot of imagery of that. So yeah, all no say for artists immigrated to Twitter. Well, there's a lot of stuff on Twitter as well, but even Twitter will put some limitations. Because I knew that Twitter, for example, there were a lot of adult porn stars in Twitter, and then they basically were now what they do is then they had like videos and everything. And it's like we're just gonna have pictures, right? So it depends, but a lot of stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
And one of the issues I have with Twitter, because an artist that I speak to recently said, like, I saw he posts, like, okay, or I made a Twitter account if you want to follow me there. But I'm like, Twitter is for someone who likes to look at this stuff and look at art. I don't like Twitter in terms of following artists and stuff, because not that I don't care what they have to say and stuff, but like when I want to look at like art and just kind of engage in that kind of just viewing of fan art and smut and whatnot, I kind of want it focused on that. And I don't want to have to like, just keep scrolling past like people reposting crappy memes that I've seen dozens of times, or talking about how just like, my thoughts and stuff, or just like random reblogs of stuff that I don't care about. And I mean, you can say the same thing for Tumblr, but I kind of mostly just followed people there. Like a lot of people didn't really repost a bunch of that stuff. I mean, yeah, sure, people like repost their thoughts and like these long blog posts, especially since they're not limited to the 180 characters on Twitter. But I don't know.
The media, there's a media tag in Twitter. Yeah. I don't know. Welcome to the program. Yeah, I think I myself like Tumblr. You know, people are like, oh, Tumblr this. And yes, like most sites, it does have a reputation. And yes, you could filter a lot of stuff. For example, myself, from the very beginning, I had a policy that I would not repost, no safe for work stuff, right? Or follow people who do that. And that means some people I know put to myself, is like, I'm sorry, because more of I don't want to be in public and be scrolling and then something pops up that I would just have in private, right? But at the same time, I'm an adult, and if I wanted to, I knew. In fact, I often posted a comment saying, like, listen, Tumblr, thank you for not, if I unfollowed you and you felt any one person that I was following, and it turns out they had this adult image, like, listen, I'm not unfollowing you because I hate you or anything like that. It's not personal. I have this personal policy that as an adult, I know where to get my porn, including Tumblr if I want to, and I don't want this to be displayed in public. You feel more comfortable with this in public, fine. I mean, I remember dating one girl that she had in her iPod, she had like full porn movies.
Wow.
And she would just do it in public. I'm like, okay, that's your thing, but I wouldn't do it, right? I worked in public libraries and stuff like that, so yeah, having like porn in public, I was like, but and yeah, I think that Tumblr should have cracked down on a lot of this stuff, but now it's become ridiculous. Let me read to you some of the standards, Tumblr new community guidelines are very specific. Adult content primarily includes photos, videos, and GIFs that show real life human genitalia, or, and this is where everybody's going crazy, female presenting nipples, and any content including photos, videos, and illustrations that depict sex acts. Okay, the company wrote to the blog post company. I mean, birth images after birth. Images of nipples related to breastfeeding, birth, or images from after birth or health-related restriction will be allowed and were written in erotica, nudity related to newsworthy events, and nudity found in art. But if you go to Tumblr, all this stuff gets blocked anyway. I mean, female presenting nipples.
What does that mean?
What?
It's like, there you go.
I mean, does it go? Does it a ratio of nipple to cup size, or the Tumblr gets to decide who is female now? What? I mean, if you're gonna go for a total ban, you're saying, this is not a site for adult content.
Yeah.
And that's it, right? Go for that, or institute stronger controls. But instead, of course, they're doing the YouTube thing where they just release the bots.
Yeah.
And the bots have you going like, Tumblr. Nope. No, by the way, no. This is idiotic, but we're still gonna ban it. And there's a lot of people who actually hate on Tumblr, just like there's a lot of people. Definitely, yeah. I think that's the thing. It has bigger issues, especially homophobic, transphobic, pedophilia, racial, hatred and political content that, people are like, oh yeah, you're promoting fascism and Nazis and all that. I mean, I think there was Washington Post did an article where literally it's like, you can't see breast, but you can find Nazi paraphernalia in Tumblr, right? You can find images of that. It's like, again, what? And there's a lot of people who just, think of Tumblr as being, the terms like Tumblrina and all that stuff. So I'm sure a lot of people will be happy to see it go. Even people who have been in the site sort of have a love-hate relationship with it. Yeah. But, yeah. And I think it sort of bodes, this is a process that we're talking about of the taming of the internet, right? Everything was allowed, and most things were allowed, and
the Wild West of the internet.
And now nothing is allowed, but sort of, but not really. But I don't know, maybe it's a thing.
I don't know. I think Yahoo just can't. I don't know how Yahoo's still alive or around, and it's like, oh hey, we purchased Tumblr, and that's something we can do. And a lot of people were worried when that happened, and that this would happen, and it has eventually happened.
Yeah, and also was the fact that there were a lot of bots, basically, especially porn bots, and they had an infected Tumblr, but they didn't do anything about it. And I think also another aspect of this is what triggered this, and what really triggered this were twofold. First, the Apple App Store basically discontinued the Tumblr app because it triggered these things like pedophilia and stuff like this. Like, no, we don't want this on our site by association, and also because it was hard to sell commercials, ads besides porn, which is ironic when people say sex sells, but apparently it doesn't sell that much, at least not in online media, unless you're selling sex, in which case it sells. Yeah, I got that right. So there you have it. So yeah, Tumblr is, tumbling, as it were, and that was a bad, horrible pun.
Yeah,
I apologize.
And I've seen people they're pretty much making a mass exodus. What?
Yeah, some people looking to other sites.
A lot of my art is considered not welcome here, so I'm gonna go somewhere else.
Yeah. There are people who fill in the niche, but I think it's also part of a much larger discussion of how do you exactly control, because it's the thing about social media, especially today, is that when something hits it big, it explodes, right? You don't simply have 1,000 or 10,000 or even 1 million users. You have millions of users 24/7. You have Tumblr is one of those places which is not one community. It's just a barrage of communities, right? To define Tumblr or YouTube or anything like that as outside of the corporate structure as having a unitary ethos of the users is completely wrong, because there's so many people doing so many things, right? It's a problem that Twitter has been facing for a while. It's Facebook as well, right? Because another aspect of this is when you give these are very popular platforms, and when you start giving veto power, I mean, they are private companies; they always had that to the users. If they don't use it, the very the first forces that you unleash, because I've seen this before, will tend to destroy the website eventually, because people are driven away. But if you overuse it, then you drive people away. So a happy medium, I don't know. We talked about it before. Probably we'll talk about it in the future, because it's something that affects all of us. I mean, we're now on Twitch, and Twitch has its own standards as well. So it's always a fine balance. Who has the power? Is it the end user? Is it the owners, etc. The reality, of course, is that whoever writes the checks makes the rules. So that's always the real rule, the golden rule. You mentioned something about, I saw a link to Andromeda in our pre-show. Let's see if I can.
That was like last month or last week.
Oh, that was last week, yeah.
It was just somebody posting like just sort of like a little lore thing. I haven't had time to read it just because of the final DLC book thing on the Quarian arc is out.
Oh, so they did it in a book form, huh? Yeah, they were promising they were going to do something like that, and it doesn't surprise me at all that that's how it dropped. But we're gonna probably check it out and see if it amounts to much of anything. I think we talked about Anna. And actually, we were talking about I was playing the stream Mass Effect. Is like having stuff outside of the game, lore-wise, that is important, just doesn't feel right.
No, I especially hate it when they do it with. They've done a lot of it with Dragon Age.
Mm-hmm.
Like it, and that kind of bothers me. Like I thought Cole from Inquisition was a little odd, and then I found out he was a book character. I'm like, well, that's already neat when you make the transition from book to like in game, but like it doesn't. Like I have to go read a book to find out what the hell his deal is. Like I didn't like Cole at all as a character or whatever the hell he is. I wouldn't even call him a character. He's just like a concept.
Mm-hmm.
And then like. I think Wynn from the first game got killed off in one of the books.
Yeah, off screen.
I'm like, what? Like, and that's not, and it'd be one thing if it was referenced in the game somehow. I don't think it is, but I think that's official.
Yeah, it is official.
Because sometimes they make like, events that happen that are canonical, and then some of them don't. Like there's one with like a comic book with Alistair in it, but that's Alistair's king in that, so that has to be a set canon.
Mm-hmm.
Versus like something that like that Dragon Age movie with Cassandra in it, which is canonical because it doesn't involve any of the games.
Yeah. I think another thing they did was the explanation of the Orlesian Civil War was in a book. So how that started and why it started, it basically tells you that it's just fight between nobles, of course. So it's a pretty easy explanation, but there's a lot of stuff in that novel. It's like, oh, and you meet characters like, oh, this is like, who the hell are you? Oh yeah, I was in this novel. I mean, I am so and so character. It's like, yes, I don't care anymore. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Goodbye. Moving on. So I think we run out of all the news, as it were.
I mean, there was just like this quick mention of that we just saw before the show that Mike Laidlaw, speaking of Dragon Age, just got hired with Ubisoft Quebec. So, I mean, that'd be interesting to see what he can do, because he's, I guess, was a big force in Dragon Age.
Mm-hmm.
And although honestly, I wouldn't hold my breath, because just the way Ubisoft games have been going lately, it's more open world stuff that it's just, like it didn't really work out very well, in my opinion, for Dragon Age Inquisition. I can't imagine if Dragon Age became even more of an open world, so something kind of creative like Dragon Age going even more open world. No, thanks.
Well, we might find... Well, we're not going to find out. We're going to get teased in the upcoming Game Awards.
I'll get the feather.
Yeah. Next week. And so that leads us to the talk of today. Game Awards in general. and particularly the Game Awards in particular, are there any good really? Why are they what are they used for? And I say that because, and this, and my friend Frame Loss, actually, fellow streamer, he is going to be covering it in another stream, a Coke stream. So I'm more power to him. For him and to talk about how he feels very excited about it, right? He gets the hype and he wants the new games and all that. I, on the other hand, I think this podcast falls on the he's more still on the more idealistic side of things, and I think this podcast falls on the more cynical side of things.
Yeah, so wait, he's excited about watching the
Awards.
games awards to see world reveals or like
Mm-hmm.
teasers and trailers, which is kind of the opposite of what a
Award show should be.
yeah, because I've never heard about like the Oscars being like, hey, Shape of Water Oscars, and now the Toller's gonna tease us with his new upcoming movie. I don't know,
Yeah, that
The
well,
Shape of Air.
the shape of air. Well, yes and no. I think it's. I mean, all award shows are basically big commercials for their specific industries. And the movies, for example, the Oscar bait movies, they are made before the Oscars, and then because they get announced to either be participating in the Oscars or particularly they win an Oscar, whatever Oscar, they tend to then people then go to the movies to watch them because it's an Oscar-winning movie, right?
Yeah.
And it boosts careers, or at least it can boost the careers of actors, directors, and all those things winning an Oscar and similar awards. But the Game Awards are pretty weird, and I'm gonna go through just the categories because I'm on the page right now. For Game of the Year, which is you have your Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Celeste, which I haven't seen anyone play. I'll have to check it out. Again, it's working already because I'm curious about it. God of War, Marvel Spider-Man, Monster Hunter World, which I played and it's a good game, I suppose, but it didn't grab me the way I think it should. I expected to, and Red Dead Redemption 2. Another category, and this is where it gets weird: Best Ongoing Game, awarded to a game for outstanding development and ongoing content that evolves the player experience over time.
Yeah, that one's kind of
So basically, this is the best game that has the best DLC and microtransaction scheme. Is that what you're talking about, Keely? And of course, you have Destiny 2, Forsaken. That's the expansion. Fortnite, No Man's Sky. Yeah, No Man's Sky. Overwatch, and Tom Clancy Rainbow Six Siege. Best game direction has Detroit Become Human, among other games. Best narrative, again, but Detroit Become Human. It's like, well, where's the game at? Life is Strange, Episode 1. Okay. Best art direction, that kind of makes sense in the look of the game. For example, Octopath Traveler is best art direction. Best score music presented by. I'm gonna read this again. Best score music dash presented by Spotify. Like that's literally the title.
oof. Something, it's a quick aside. Something that I hate about the PlayStation 4 is the lack of being able to rip your own CDs and put your own music and listen to it while you're playing a game, because it would rather that you use Spotify.
Yeah, I mean, remember the original Xbox? You could copy music from CDs into the hard drive. You could rip it, so that was something you could do. And in
You could do
fact,
it in the PlayStation 3 as well.
yeah, that was cool because I remember when I was playing GTA 3 and GTA Vice City, you would have your own channel. So what I did for Vice City was I ripped a bunch of music from the 1980s, like Michael Jackson and Phil Collins and all that. And when I was like, oh, I mean, it has great stations, but it's like, okay, now I want to hear my own stuff. I would be driving around, fictional Miami, listening to Studio. Oh, it's like, and that was pretty cool. But you can't do that anymore. Oh, the next category, best audio design, which is not best music, presented by Dolby. And yes, this is where we get into the problems right here. It has games at best game as for Impact, which is always a bit controversial. Best independent game, Deck Cells, Into the Breach, Return of the
A-
Obra Dinn, right?
Actually, I was just trying to look that up to see like so like did Undertale was even mentioned in one of these previous where it was for the record.
Hmm.
It was beat out by Rocket League, which I wouldn't agree. There's other indie games I would say are better than Rocket League, but that seems honestly the most mainstream independent game that they listed in that category
Best
for
family game.
for 2015.
One mention that I was very interesting is best strategy game, and among them is BattleTech, which I played this year and probably play again. And BattleTech was a good game, but it was kind of buggy.
Well, honestly, so conspiracy little tinfoil hat thing.
Hmm.
Would it surprise you if like somewhere in like the scripting already, because I already know they have a lot of this like planned out, if Fallout 76 was somewhere in these awards, and I don't think they have like dumpster fire of the year award. But like, do you think they might have had like that at some point? Like, oh, best multiplayer online game, Fallout 76, and like, oh, no, gotta
Yeah,
remove it.
well, that's a surprising, and that's why we talk about one of the reasons why I want to talk about this. It's not simply the Game Awards; is that awards in video games are, let's be honest, they're useless. I mean,
They are.
how many times have we seen a games like Game of the Year award? A Game of the Year has like 5 stickers or something or other. This magazine gave this award. This gave this award. This is that. Da, da, da. And you're like, when I was younger, those things kind of mattered. But I've
Yeah.
been so disappointed that I was like, yeah. I mean, this is an industry that you have awards in expos like E3, like
Mm-hmm.
best of E3. I'm like, what was best of E3? Uh, I mean, if you're giving best presentation, I guess that's an award you can give.
You
But
didn't have a technical issues
yeah,
presentation
the giant
or
screen
award.
didn't fall over and smash you and kill you in front of 10,000, 5,000 people. Way to go. I mean, I dealt with horrific, presentation problems, but that didn't happen. It's like if you have an industry that is perfectly willing to give awards to non-existing products, the fact that you say, oh, maybe they
Yeah.
had an Fallout 76, but then it was a complete dumpster fire. It's
Didn't they have like an award like for I don't think this year, but didn't they have an award before for like most anticipated upcoming game?
let
Like
me-
I feel like that was a category somewhere.
yeah. You have best esport. I have a lot of stuff for esport. Content creators.
Yeah, they I think they're starting didn't the No report that CVS wanted to create
Yeah,
their
award
own
show.
awards game? And I believe they mentioned some of the categories they're looking for, and a lot of those are like best female like YouTube influencer, best male YouTube influencer. So now they're starting to get into, I think, almost like they're trying to draw in fans like sort of outside of just buy a video game and play it and
Yeah.
enjoy it kind of crowd. It's like, oh, let's also start getting incorporating more of the culture into it, not just the games themselves, letting them stand on their own.
it makes sense a little bit, but it's one of those things. And when you talk about that, it's sort of the looping itself around that the Game Awards particularly are just so nakedly commercial, and that's, I think, so part of the problem. Like everything that they're doing seems so cynical, right? Even if they go, oh, best indie game, best this, it's like you should feel so cynical because, between. I mean, I think last year was somebody ran around in a suit for a shaving, for
Yeah, the Hydro Slick.
yeah, Hydro Slick Man. I'm like,
Yeah,
this is ridiculous to the point. Is like, I almost want to say, uh, peak capitalism. Sort of. I want to just take my, my manifesto and go like, okay, Marx, what are you talk to me? Because this is,
Now I'll pay a little more attention if they come out with a category of like best adult video game presented by Bad Dragon or something.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, probably, but it
Like,
just
oh, I don't think they'd ever have the balls to do anything like that.
and I think the problem here is that first of all, a game or shows like this are just imitating in a way. They're not imitating
They're
the best parts of other game shows
so
of the awards. Like for example, you're not supposed to talk about future projects and have commercials for games that will be shown in the future, what the game awards do, right? Hyping other things.
yeah,
You're supposed to celebrate games. So you
yeah,
use examples of existing games as sort of
exactly. And it feels more that we're being sold to and not celebrating games themselves or the gaming culture. We're being sold the gaming culture. We're being sold to as the gaming culture. Kind of. That's sort of why I hate it. And it almost reminds me of Lindsay Ellis released a video a couple of weeks ago called like manufacturing I lost the word. It authenticity, was it?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I know saw the video same way. Yeah, uh,
And it feels like that. It feels exactly what she was talking about in terms of like, oh hey, we're gamers too, and just trying to kind of like, oh hey, we're also part of this culture kind of thing. When all of this has been planned out, it's a corporate shell to just market to us.
it's and there's also a video also about K-pop about how Cuk philosophy, CUK philosophy. He basically was talking about how K-pop is sort of extremely manufactured, right? Overly
Manufacturer, there we go. It's like
manufactured and overly saturated, and how K-pop idols and bands or groups, really, because they're basically boy bands and girl bands,
Mhm.
are there to sell products. Who then they're there to sell products who people pay attention because they're the K-pop artists is doing it. So it's sort of a circular kind of thing, right? The products exist to support the K-pop artists. The K-pop artists exist because they tell you that that's an important product, and the K-pop band is important because they're tied to these products. They're willing to
Mhm.
sell, right? Um, and it's more just like K-pop. It seems more like they're not selling you on any one thing. They're selling you on the idea of the industry, like that idea of ongoing games.
Yeah.
I
Like
Because in ongoing game you can review the release and that's it, and maybe you can really review particular aspects of the game, but simply just it's still a good game. Here's an
yeah.
award for just not being incredibly crappy in the way it functions and very very popular. I
Which
mean,
is weird because I would think like No Man's Sky, was that advertised as an ongoing game? Like was it going to be advertised as like this ever changing game that's going to be patched and stuff?
not really,
I don't remember that.
but now it's in the awards, right?
Yeah, because they had a patch 2 years after launch after actually finally getting the game to what was promised. And oh yeah, become Detroit Human. I need to play that
Yeah.
game. That looks like a little fun thing to just laugh at, but not at $60. So
No. And I think it's one of the things where you're like they're selling us on the idea of the industry. That you're
hmm
part of the industry. That everything you're a cog in the machine, right? You can act it, and this award also has aspects of being like the People's Choice Awards, so people can vote. They can subscribe and vote for stuff. But I wouldn't subscribe to that page because we don't know how many emails I'm gonna get about
yeah,
upcoming releases, right? And how much spam. So as People's Choice Awards, it sometimes has moments that are like sort of tongue-in-cheek moments that you see like in the MTV Movie Awards. But the MTV Movies Awards are like that because it's the culture of MTV. So they're so like, oh, we're gonna make fun. And the People's Choice Awards are there because of People Magazine. That's people don't realize that that's why they're doing. Uh, and those other awards exist because you already have established awards, right? And so they start to distinguish themselves. This award tries to
yeah.
be everything for everyone, and I think it encapsulates a lot of the problems, right? And why it doesn't take it seriously. Because let's talk about award shows and let's talk about the big one, the Oscars.
hmm
And I've been thinking about this for a very long time, and And you know me, and probably Anna's gonna get angry at me for saying it, but I'm not a big believer of video games as a storytelling format, right? I believe that video games by themselves, the game, whatever the mechanics, schematics are, the way, the importance sort of be what you do in a game rather than the story. Because I can get the story much easier from a television show, from a book, from a movie. What makes video games stand out is that you get to do things, and what you get to do in those games. That's my philosophy. Okay, I'm setting that as a setup here. Not everybody agrees with me. In fact, most people disagree with me. I understand that as well, and for some good reasons. But the movie started people saying, "Oh, that's just some kind of toy. It's not very serious." And when movies came out, they started making the Oscars, and the Oscars are
Well, first off, they're sort of self-perpetuated just to try to give credibility to movies by being uh, rated by the industry itself.
exactly, but and more so than that, we like to think about what is a quality movie based on what the Oscars. And what the Oscars has done is basically said to the world, we are art because we say we're art.
We're the critiques of art. We say what's art and what's not.
That is true, but also if you see a lot of the Oscars are technical, and increasingly there are more technical aspects to the Oscars are given. Makeup and for principal photography and scripts. What the Oscars show is that yes, movies borrow a lot from theater and photography. The technical aspects from photography, the technological aspects originally from photography, and then the performance aspect from theater. You can say, but we don't say that movies are film theater, just like we don't say that television is radio with pictures. And the reason we don't say that is that that Oscars have focused on what makes movies movies, and we have accepted them. They made a good faith argument, regardless of the cynicism about Oscar bait and all that, about what makes a movie, its own art form. And the same thing with the Tonys for sort of theater is much older, of course, than movies. That goes without saying, but I just did. And television and Golden Globes and all that. And I think that's what we need in video games. But that requires challenging some very well established commercial aspects of video games. And it goes into the very, very thorny problem of what is and isn't a video game, and who gets, like you were talking about the Oscars, who gets to decide what is and isn't a video game, right?
And see, here's something I'm looking at the awards because I just thought of this. So an issue I have with the game of the year. So they have their list of games, and oh yeah, it's Celeste. I looked that up really quick, and I saw some gameplay of that on somebody's video, and it just gave me anxiety just watching. Like the idea of trying to do all those jumps and avoid the spikes, it just gives me anxiety. But it looks fantastic. I love the art style. But the thing I was thinking, just like they have all these categories, like best mobile, like best game direction. How come Detroit Become Human isn't in like game of the year? Because if it's good enough to be at the top of, say, its category for whatever, like game with best narrative, like I sort of interpret that as like game, like best storytelling game, or like best, I'm going to scroll down to best mobile game, like, and best VR game. How come best whatever game comes out on top of best mobile game and best VR game, how come that can't be best game of the year? Like, why? It's a game. It came out this year, and it's good enough to fall into this category, but not good enough to be judged as a potential candidate for game of the year. Like, you see the issue I have. There's like no, I feel like there's no criteria to try to make this less biased.
Well, I think it's because the bias is already cooked in. It's
I noticed that all the best games or game of the year are all AAA games, with maybe the exception of Celeste. I'm not sure.
No, I think it's an indie game. Yeah.
Is it an indie game?
Yeah.
So that's the token game.
Yeah, but again, like I said, and also let's look at who is the force behind it. Keeley. Let me let me go to the page so we can actually talk about that. Okay, this is the about page. The Game Awards recognize and uphold creative and technical excellence in the global video game industry. Global video game industry. Um, and trophy host. Okay, let's look at the host. Who's the host? Jeff Keighley. Awards were created by 2014 by media entrepreneur Jeff Keighley. Over the past 2 decades, Keighley has served as a journalist, host, and producer of video game programming across multiple platforms, including print, television, and digital media. Keighley has been known for his work over the years with Entertainment Weekly, Spike TV, G4, and YouTube. Was a landmark series of behind-the-scenes game development stories known as The Final Hours. In 2017, he also produced E3's first consumer programming, the E3 Coliseum. E3. 2 days of panels with game creators and master storytellers from other entertainment mediums. That's not what Jeff Keighley is well best known about. There's a slight little piece of news that we don't talk about Jeff Keighley. Let's shall we say, Google Monsieur Jeff Keighley and see images. Well, he has a lot of images, but you start seeing as you scroll down on Google, you start seeing the Dorito Pope. Because Jeff Keighley, of course, once did an interview eating a bag of Doritos surrounded by bottles of Mountain Dew. I guess he has embraced that, and people have sort of forgiven him for that, I suppose. It was not really a sin. It's more how kind of laughable it was, how sort of plain and exploitative and commercial, just out there. And therefore, I am not surprised to just read the description of what the Game Awards are. Because it's basically, he's the person behind them. He's the one who's produced them. He's the one who's there. Like 2 years ago, he just fawned over. Who was it? I think it was last year. Let's go back to the page because it actually is in the history of the awards. Let's look at history. And one of the highlights of 2017, in 2016, of course, was a tribute to industry icon and former Konami employee.
Kojima.
Hideo Kojima, right? Who is now going to, again, one of the news that we're hearing from the 2018 Game Awards, going to have yet another premiere of his game, Death Stranding, which nobody really has an idea what it will be because it's Kojima. Could be great. It could be, certainly will be weird. But there you have it, right? It's and so I think we do need, I mean, in the sense that all of these things it's commercial, right? Everything's commercial. I'm not gonna pretend here that it isn't. If you're someone like our friend Frame Loss, who is excited about what's coming, more power to you. But ultimately, this is not the right outlet to take video games to the next level, because as Anna has said, it's definitions can be very subjective, and I think nobody's, well, I'm willing to do so, but I'm just a little channel on YouTube and Twitch, so that doesn't really count. Very few people are willing to put stakes on the ground and say this is it, unless it is to say, haha, that thing that you like, it sucks because it's not X, Y, or C.
Yeah.
And
see, I think that's why these Game Awards sort of they're popular. Well, I wouldn't say popular. Maybe like they're accepted because it's sort of like a it's sort of validation for our hobby. Like, oh, yeah. Hey, like, this hobby that you have, it can have like praise and appeal and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's the quest for validation, which again is also part of many of the awards as well. And if you look at the categories, many of these there's no real controversy in these shows, right?
Yeah.
There at no point because people when people in the Oscar show people really don't talk deeply about the movies themselves. They just get the awards, but people do talk about Oscar movies and do talk about them in a way that if this is supposed to be the high level art, then they're going to talk about it. The choices of the Game Awards are more safe, right? It's what's popular.
Yeah.
Like, because if you didn't have Red Dead Redemption in one of those categories,
Mm-hmm.
there will be a lot of people who will get angry, right?
Yeah.
If you didn't have, let's other, the look at the nominees, right? There are Red Dead Redemption, God of War, the latest Spider-Man game, right? They're the games that we expect them to be there, almost by consumer inertia.
Yeah.
I think there was Fortnite won an award, and people were like, "Oh, Fortnite, oh." I mean, but since we don't know really, the maybe Fortnite is a good game. I only played very little
Yeah.
of it. It's
Well,
not that
like,
type of game, but you know, what are we saying? I mean, is the best game of the year the game that has all the aspects I think people talk about? Best narrative, best mechanics, best graphics. Uh, I mean, is that what we're saying?
yeah.
Um,
Well, like I went back to like the 2005 one because I was kind of like, well, was Undertale even considered as game of the year? And I'm looking at the game of the year for 2015. I'm like the one that won is Witcher 3.
mhm,
Wait, Witcher. Oh, yeah, that's the full title, the Wild Hunt.
mhm.
So Witcher 3, like, okay, yeah, like, no, I can see that. And like some of the other options, like Bloodborne, that was a pretty good game. Fallout 4, I thought it was terrible, but I can see why people would vote for that one. Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, that was a small game, but again, Hideo Kojima's name's attached to it, so of course it's going to be there. And then it's like Super Mario Maker. Like, really? Like that's game of the year, like not Rocket League. Rocket League that won best independent game. That's not even like a nominee, or Laura Craft Go for best mobile.
Yeah, I mean, I think we might actually need more. If CBS comes with a new show, maybe we need more of them, right? We need a Games Critic Awards, and we need
Yeah,
more
like,
shows in order to actually start doing some actual comparisons. Because the thing is, we don't have a lot of them as well. And
yeah,
and if the Game
because
Awards are not doing what I think they should be doing, then we need more. I hate to say this, we need more shows in order to do that. I think I'm more comfortable with people's own personal list. Like if somebody's like I do it, maybe if I do top, I probably won't do that. I'd probably do the top three or
yeah,
four games that
we'll
I
do
played this
our
year.
we'll
But
do our annual like, hey, games that we played and
yeah, stuff like that. I think those
enjoyed
are
this
more.
year.
Yeah, and I'm probably gonna do that for also for the state of the channel at the end of the year. I'm more comfortable with that because yeah, they're subjective, but then I feel that I kind of know the people that are doing it. So if Angry Joe has a list, I sort of feel like yeah, I know
Hmm.
where Angry Joe is gonna like or dislike. If Jim Sterling did one, if the late Total
Total
Biscuit
Biscuit.
did one, if Jesse Cox did one, if Dodger did one, if you did one, if I did one, right? If Anna did one, or anybody else, we were like, oh, okay, I guess I know where they're coming from, and also I think with streamers and stuff like that, I could actually see them playing the game, and often they will give you, that's what we do as streamers. We sort of give a play by play of what we like or dislike or what we find interesting or not. So I think that might be a situation, right? Instead of doing game awards and sort of best of years, more one of the things that is, did you play this game and did you enjoy it? I think that would give a little more credibility.
Yeah, and but I think it's just weird to say like, oh, hey, like have I mean, to me, if you're gonna say a game is like the the best game of this year,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not, like, there's categories that it could fall under that you also rate, and it's not even part of that category.
Mm-hmm.
Like, say if Octopath Traveler wasn't in like the best RPG of the year. If that's not even a category, and if it's not even the best of its category, then what's it doing on the greatest game of the year or best game of the year?
Yeah.
So it's, I guess it's just a different. Oh, hey, I didn't even notice this game was here. The Return of the Obra Digi.
Oh, right then. Oh, right then.
Oh no, no, no. Oh no, wait. That's I was looking under best art director. Never mind. It's not.
Yeah.
And like, how is Life is Strange episode 1? Like, why is that even here? Like, that's not a full game. Shouldn't that be?
That's another another aspect too, as well. As I think some of these categories exist to sort of, they want to be everything to everyone, and so they want to cover their bases to say, well, yeah, we have these artistic mentions as well, and we have this game that is and I'm gonna use this term, so hold on to your butts, the quote unquote SJW game of the year, the one with meaning, right? Which, games should have meaning. I'm not, it almost highlights the fact that a lot of people think, oh, they don't get my politics in my games, because it's like, dude, you live in a political world. Get used to it. It's like, whatever.
Like, why Life is Strange episode 1 under best narrative? Like, maybe the episode itself, like, might have a good narrative, but, like, is it a complete package? Like, I don't see Deltarune on here. Like, Deltarune was like a little quick demo, and it was.
And why isn't it under the best category of ongoing games?
Yeah.
So ongoing games are okay, is ongoing game a way of saying
best online game?
Best online game? Because if you're saying best online game, that's pretty straightforward, right? But ongoing game, it just sounds so, oily lawyer PR talk. Like, no, it's not a multiplayer online game. No, we don't do that. But this is an ongoing game, a game that you'll play forever.
Yeah, how come Deltarune Chapter 1 isn't in one of these awards?
Yeah, somebody again. Yeah, I think this is clearly an award show made from the industry side of things. That I don't think increasingly doesn't have anything to do how people actually experience games, and it brings us back to that sort of reviewer divide and all that. It always is going to exist, but this is more of, I don't know. It just sets off my cynical alarms 110%.
Yeah. And the one thing that I really care about the awards game or these awards games is that it tends to lead to some of these games getting like game of the year editions that tend to be cheaper, or they have like all their DLCs together, and then I wait for that to drop and like, oh, I got it for $20, the complete package, a year later, just because we're poor.
Yeah. Best discount game.
Yeah.
Best bargain bin game. Best game that you should have bought 6 months later with all the DLC.
I'm glad I don't.
Best kitty game.
Well, I'm surprised I don't see Fallout 76 anywhere here. It really makes me wonder if they're like.
That's another thing. It's like, oh, the games awards are in December, when all the big drops of games happen in November. How long did it take for people to decide for these categories to come out exactly?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm sure Red Dead Redemption was always going to be in Game of the Year. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it was in there in January.
Yeah. It's like, oh, it's more of a list of most anticipated games that actually came out this year, as opposed to, I mean, I'm saying that Red Dead Redemption doesn't deserve the award.
Yeah.
And we're picking on it. It's just that it feels that the awards really don't have anything really to do with actual quality, and more about selling you stuff.
Yeah.
So there you have it, folks. That's our take on the not so useful award games, at least the game awards. Final recommendation: either we need more awards, or we need to completely overhaul the game awards, or whatever. Certainly, it's not certainly the Oscar of video games by far, nor should it be. And then again, the Oscar of video games, well, Oscars are Oscars. I think that's finally the point. Oscars are Oscars, and the Golden Globes are the Golden Globes, and the Game Awards for whatever they are is there. Well, yeah, welcome to capitalism. Yeah, but I like my capitalism. I don't know, Apple style, where at least they try to convince me that it's for my own good, and I chose these things as opposed to. You see the flat face of this book on capitalism. Bam! Oh, like, oh, right, okay, capitalism. Thank you. Yeah. So we're gonna leave it there for today. Anna, the Unknown, everybody who joined us in chat, thank you for coming. Chapelmon, where can we find you on the interwebs?
You can find me at Chapelmont pretty much everywhere. I am Chapelmont_Aragon on Twitch and Twitter, although you probably won't see any adult content on my under Chapelmont at tumblr.com anymore. But I'm pretty much Chapelmont on YouTube. That's where I primarily hang out.
Yeah. And you can find me here, of course, on Lessons Learned 1. You can find me on Lessons Learned YouTube channel. I was going to say you can find me on Tumblr, but I don't think that's going to last for long. And finally, I have an announcement. I confirmed that, barring any major hiccups, I will be joining the Ractus crew on Ractus channel on Twitch and on YouTube for Cyberpunk 2020. So Session 0 should be happening tonight at around 7 o'clock Eastern. So if you want to see play a badass solo, a Soldier of Fortune, well, then you can join us there. I think it's going to be pretty interesting. So thank you everybody for coming. And as always, let's drink ourselves to a stupor as late stage capitalism consumes us all. And if you want to join the late capitalism party here at Lessons Learned Podcast, you can also drop bits, subscribe, follow, join the Discord, or simply talk to our lovely people on the chat. So I'm not going to belay this anymore. I'm just going to say I bid you adieu. Goodbye.
Goodbye.